That a year ago at this time I was in early email negotiations with Reverend Mary about a possibility of coming here and examining being the minister of this place, and just the difference a whole year makes. And it was, for some reason this morning with the kind of weather being kind of, the interesting weather we've had lately, I was thinking that last April or actually last day of March last year, I was in a moving van driving through the snows of Bend, Oregon, and south of there, kind of like worrying about whether I'd skid off the road with my car being towed behind me. And here I am 8 months later, and I just want to thank you all for bringing me and welcoming me into your community. And it's very heart-touching. It's very good. Thank you. So our talk today is on enough. And there's a number of different ways to say enough. If I keep on talking about the Seahawks, eventually Luke over there is going to go, enough! Ray will probably join him too. It was tragic to see that beautiful little girl with the 49ers outfit on crying, because she's going to be doing more of that for the same reason on Thursday night after. For those of you who are not football fans, Seattle and San Francisco are playing on Thursday night after Thanksgiving dinners, and so there'll be a meeting of the Titans, I guess it is, or whatever like that. Anyways, so that's one way of enough. Enough is too much. I've had a couple of people say, enough talk about money and pledging. Okay, and we're done. Another way of enough is, you should just be grateful for what you have. It's enough. Yeah, some of you have heard that before in your lives, right? Okay, but that's not what we're going to talk about today either. Merriam-Webster's dictionary describes enough as occurring in such quantity, quality, or scope as to fully meet demands, needs, or expectations. And I love that. Fully meet demands, needs, or expectations. And that's what we're here about. That's what we're here to do, is to start to move into that consciousness where our enough fully meets our demands, needs, and expectations. Enough is the state of being fulfilled. Fulfilled. And when we're in that state, when we're in that condition, we're in the consciousness of Spirit, we're in the consciousness of the divine. How many of you have felt that at some point in time, where you felt that enough? Even if it's just for a moment. Okay? You have a touchstone. You have something to relate to. I invite you, and if you have never felt that, imagine what that would feel like. What would it feel like to be in that state where your needs, whatever it is at the moment, are fully met? Breathe that in. Feel what that feels like in your body. That's our natural state. That's how we're supposed to be. Did you know that? Yes. Okay. Well, you weren't told that, were you, when you were a kid? No, most of you. Most of us. A few maybe. But most of us were not told that as a kid. We were told, be happy. I had an uncle who used to like to say, well, it's better than a kick in the head by a Missouri mule. What the heck, Yeah, be satisfied with what you have, kid. So when we're living in that state, we're living in a state of grace, we're living in a state of spiritual alignment when we're in that sense of enoughness. And when we live in that spiritual alignment, we experience that enoughness as our natural state. And so how do we know what we're doing? We have a wonderful opportunity. It's a great metaphor coming right up this week called Thanksgiving dinner. Okay? Many of us have experienced Thanksgiving dinner. And for some of us, enough is that, oh God, enough. Right? We've had too much. Right? And for some of us, we'll go into Thanksgiving dinner and we won't get what we really need. We might get a lot of food, but we won't get what we really want or need for our souls. Okay? And some of us will go to Thanksgiving dinner and have that. Our taste buds, the part that wants to keep going, they're so attractive. I mean, it all tastes good, right? Reverend Mary talked about I had that pie too. I had a piece of that pie also. Oh my goodness. And then Kay's daughter, Wendy, brings in this pecan-topped butter white cake with pumpkin underneath. It's sort of like an upside down pumpkin. Anyway. Believe it or not, I like things other than chocolate. I know it's a secret here, but I actually do. Anyways, so we have that. The taste buds keep going, oh, it all tastes so good, it looks so wonderful, and we've got people around us, they're stuffing themselves, and maybe the people who've made it are going, eat more, eat more. Your mom, your grandma, you know who I'm talking about, or maybe it's you, And so we get all that stimulation that says, keep on eating, keep on going, keep on doing it. And we get in touch with our mental models. We get an awareness of our mental models of what do I think Thanksgiving is supposed to look like? Is it all about gorging myself with food until I'm groaning and not feeling well and kind of have that, I'm not going to eat for another week afterwards? Does anybody besides me ever get to that point? Yeah, okay, good, yeah. Or do we take the time to start to catch up with our body? Do we start to take the time to listen to our heart and our soul and what does it really want? If you've noticed, if you ever pace yourself with your eating at Thanksgiving, and I've learned to do this over the years because I've had a number of years where it's like that kind of feeling afterwards. I've learned to pace myself and I've learned to listen to my body. I've learned to start off with smaller portions and then afterwards I can decide, do I want something more? And so do we take the time, and this is a metaphor, this isn't just about the Thanksgiving dinner, this is a life metaphor. Do we take the time to listen? Do we take the time to listen to our spirit for what it really wants? Do we take the time to listen to our heart and our soul? Recently my heart and my soul were robbed of something by Gloria right over there, who bid on that last little item that I wanted in the auction out there and got it. However, moving on to Christmas, and I forgive you. Or, well, I will after I go home and journal for a while and pray. For those of you who don't know, we just finished our silent auction out there, and it was fun to watch the bidding. And she unfortunately used the fact that I needed to be in here by 10:30 to start the service to take advantage of me. But I know that thing isn't a perfect home. Anyways. Christmas is another wonderful example like that. Do we do enough? Do we experience enough? It's a wonderful place where we sit there and go, have I bought enough presents? Have I decorated enough? Am I getting enough presents? Some of us know people who like that or like that. Right now you send me to Home Depot or Lowe's, and I look around at the Christmas lights up there. There's so many lights. And I go crazy about lights. I don't necessarily put them all up in my house. I just like to have extra pairs in case one goes out, and then I can just take that whole set down and I have a new set to put up. Makes sense, right? Somebody, thank you. Thank you, whoever agreed with me. Thank you out there. Bless you. But we have that whole thing going on at Christmas time. Are we doing enough? How many of you have ever felt that? Or known somebody who's felt that, right? We look around at the shopping frenzy that's been going on since, Halloween. I was going to say the beginning of November, but the day before that too. Buy, more, fill. And the intellect wants to be stimulated. The intellect is like our taste buds. Fill it with junk food and it's happy. Fill it with bright, shiny objects and it's accepting it's never satisfied. Because there's always another bright, shiny object, isn't there? So do we take the time to listen? Does this bright, shiny object really call to me? Is it really mine? Or am I just buying it because I'm in a buying frenzy? You want to see buying frenzies, go to some of the stores tonight or tomorrow. They call it Black Friday. They could also call it probably Bloody Friday for some people. This is a metaphor for how a lot of us do life, how a lot of people do life. And again, I come back to, do we take the time to listen? During this particular season especially, do we take the time to come back and listen to what does my heart and what does my soul want? It might be a much simpler process than what we've been doing. And oftentimes it has nothing to do with the buy, pretty stuff out there. Oftentimes it has to do with connections with people, connections with the earth, connections with our soul, connections with what's really truly going on around us, the celebration of the light returning. So I want to invite you to start to pay attention to that. There was a James Bond movie a number of years ago called The World Is Not Enough. And in the movie, it was Pierce Brosnan who was playing James Bond at that time, refers to it as, he says, it's an old family motto. You know, we could have the world and the world would still not be enough. Right? And we've met people like that. The world is not enough. They could own the whole world and it would still not be enough. And the reason is, and all of us, not all of us, many of us have some aspect of that within us. Because many of us have the belief that we're not enough. Whoever we are, we're not enough. You know, I was talking at the first service with every time I write a talk, I'm always afraid it's not good enough. I've been doing this for years, but every time, you know, I don't feel bad because I asked Mary if she did the same thing, and she said yes. And I read that Henry Fonda, even at 75 years old, would go into the bathroom and get sick prior to going out on the stage to do a play. Okay, so I know that I'm not the only one. You know, and I know that probably there's one more person besides me who sometimes feels not good enough or not enough out here in the congregation. But for the rest of you, you know there's people out there. We have this. And in a little bit of a way, it's a good motive, it's a good incentive. Because if I just, it's good enough. We've met people like that, right? It's good enough for government work. That doesn't incent us to keep on moving. So it's good to have a little bit of that insecurity going on, but not to let it run our lives. Most of us have picked that up from when we were really small children. Most of us have learned whatever we did, at some point in time we've experienced rejection, we've experienced disapproval, and we've gotten the feeling of, I didn't do it well enough, it's not good enough. I've noticed when that little part of me comes out, it's usually a very young boy. It's kind of sitting there going, you sure it's enough? It's not enough? Whatever. And I have to kind of take him by the shoulder and say, we're okay. We're okay. You know, I had that recently. I was sharing, it was in Pier 1 Imports. I was looking for something different, and there was this wonderful tin Santa Claus, big, it's about probably 4.5 feet tall, tin Santa Claus that was there. And it caught my eye almost the minute I walked in the store, and I kind of went, ooh, you know. And, but I've also learned something else. I learned to shut down listening to what my heart says that it wants. How many of you can relate to that part? Right. And so I looked at it and went, oh no, I couldn't afford that. I don't really need that. You know, as I could hear my mother's voice going off in my head. You know, she grew up in the Depression. You know, and so it's like just bare bones. It's, you know, if you don't need it, if it's not absolutely necessary, you know, you don't get it. So, but I was looking at this thing, and I was shopping for something else completely. I was actually shopping for something for the church, and it kept catching my eye, and I kept thinking about it. And finally, I decided to get up the gumption, and I walked over to one of the people who works there and said, "How much is that?" And so she said, "Well, let's take it down and take a look at it and see how much it is," because you couldn't see the price tag on it. It was $135. Now, I have never bought a Christmas decoration for $135 before in my life. Now, if you add up all the lights I have, they count for more than that, but, you know, but not at one time, you know, and not something that wasn't lights. True confessions. If I had to take it down and looked at it, and so I walked around the store kind of thinking about it and feeling it, and I noticed that, yeah, I really did want that. It was really cool. I knew exactly where I was going to put it in my house. You know, and about that time, I'm sitting there kind of, but there's a little part of me going, well, you shouldn't afford it. And there's part of me sitting there going, yeah, plenty of money, you can afford this easily. There's another part going, but you might not. That money might not stay. Something might happen, something might come up, you know, you really shouldn't, you know. It's like listening to my mother all over again, you know. And finally I said, yes, I'm going to take it. I was kind of incented because there was another woman in the store who was like, okay, if you don't, I'm going to, because it was the only one they had. I finally said, because she said, I'm going to put that in my wine cave, whatever, what do you call those? Wine cellar. Wine cave. You know. The Santa is holding a little thing here, has a tray, and it'd be perfect with a bottle of Bordeaux right there, you know, but, you know, mine has a candle in front of it. And So I finally just said, yes, this is really what my heart wants. I had to listen to my heart, and I had to get through all of the don't go for what you really want. And that's the other half of enough. Do we go for what we really want? You're God in form. Remember? Yes. Remember? You are God in form. And I've heard that God is enough. Michael, do you have any music to help us with that? All right. I want you to know, I got the 9:30 service up and singing, or 9 o'clock service up and singing to this song. So you're going to have to get up. We're going to sing an affirmation together. And it goes, God is enough. God is enough for me. God is enough. Yes. Move. Get your body into this feeling.
God is enough. God is enough for me. God is enough for me. God is enough. God is enough for me. God is enough for me. You have got to stand, even if you don't feel it, even when you can't see it. You have got to stand. Sometimes you might stumble down the mountain of your dreams, but you must just get on up and stand. Say, God is enough for me. Oh, God is enough. God is enough for me. In the morning, God is enough. In the evening, every day I say, God is enough for me. You have got to stand.
Before you sit, look at your neighbor and say, God is enough for me. God is enough for you. All right. The Joyful Living Journal, out of which we're doing our talk, says enough is the state of being satisfied. Satisfied, not just getting by, satisfied with what you have right now. Not resigned or that you can't have what you want. But once you get it, it's actually enough. So are you willing to be satisfied? Yes. So some practices to help us to do that. Number one is explore and identify what satisfies you. What is it? What is it that satisfies you? Name it. So many times we won't do it because we sit there and go, I have no idea how I'm ever going to get that. I have enough. And how am I going to get, or not get, but how am I going to be and express that which is mine to express? How can I be the enoughness that I'm here to be? What does that take? What does that entail? What does that look like? You know, it's funny when Michael came running up here and did the announcements and said, I'd love to talk. You know, for years I was a sound tech in CSL Seattle. And after a while I kept hearing this little voice that said, you're on the wrong end of the microphone. And I'm like, go away, shut up, no, not me. You know, I'm not a minister, I'm never going to be a minister, no. See how that worked out. When the Spirit calls, you might as well just say yes, okay? I'll just tell you that right now. Shortcut. Right? Right. I said no a lot and resisted a lot. It doesn't work. I said no and resisted a lot out of my own not enoughness. So when you recognize that you're enough, when you recognize that you're God enough, when you recognize that you are the beloved in whom the Spirit in the infinite is always well pleased, and there's nothing you can ever do to isolate yourself from that infinite presence, you open up and let it flow through you, and you don't have to hold it back anymore. And you're also then no longer seeking for stuff out there to make you happy or enough or fulfilled, because you recognize who you truly are, and you are fulfilled right now. Okay, breathe that in. We take the time to shut off our intellect, not completely, but to tone it down a little bit for that bright, shiny object mentality that we have. More Christmas stuff, more turkey, more money, more cars, more relationship, better quality relationship than what I have even now. How about if I was just happy with my relationship partner now? If I recognize that that person and I are enough, what would that do to my relationship? And one of the number one causes of relationships falling apart, from what I understand, is criticism. And criticism is, you're not enough. And oftentimes comes from a place of, and I don't feel enough. And so I want you to be enough for me. Breathe. Just in case that hit home. What would it be like if we stopped going for that and started listening instead to the Spirit within us? Started listening to our hearts and our souls that recognize who we are, know what it is that we want, know what it is that we're here to be and express. How would that shift your lives? Would it make a difference? Homework. We're back to homework. This week I invite you, during all that's going on, to pay attention to your feelings, to pay attention to your heart and soul, to pay attention to that spiritual deep aspect of you and ask it what it wants to be fulfilled. Sometimes we find ourselves having to be in situations out of obligation that maybe we don't want to be, but how can I be in that situation and be fully present and fully involved and fully engaged as Spirit and fully in alignment with that? Maybe I have family members that I don't like. What would it be if I saw them as God in form? And for some of you, you're sitting there going, yeah, but you don't know my family. No, I don't know your family, but I do know family turmoil and stuff like that. What would it be like if you could be present with each person this week? From that full centered, I'm enough. What would happen if when you walked into that person who always sits there and goes, there's a funny thing running around Facebook right now saying, so what are you going to say this Thanksgiving now that Charles Manson is married for why you're not married? Charlie Manson got married in jail. Okay? Sorry. So what are you going to say to that person? Can you come from your enoughness? Wherever you are in your life right now, are you enough? Yes. By the way, you are. Just in case you need to know, just tell them, my minister said, yes, I am. He got it straight from God. As you pay attention, learn what fulfills you. What fulfills your heart and your soul? What is it that opens you up where you just simply start to blossom and glow? Pay attention to that. It can be small stuff. It doesn't have to be the big, huge, what's my career for the rest of my life and I have to save all the world. And I'm talking, it doesn't have to be that. What is it? Just the little stuff. Pay attention to that. Secondly, notice your beliefs around the idea of enough. Are you working on enough is I should be satisfied with what I have even though it's not really what I want? What I call the martyr complex. How many of you know martyrs in your life? Right? I gave you everything. You should be grateful. I made this for you. Okay? You don't want to do that. Just notice your beliefs around enough. Do I do that? Do I need to have myself constantly being filled with something else, outer stimulation, whatever that takes to divert me from really feeling what I don't want to feel? Or am I willing to walk into and feel the feelings that I am, knowing that I'm enough to face those feelings, even the ones that look ugly and icky? I am enough to face those and walk through them. Am I willing to be that person? Yes. Am I willing to be into that much of an enoughness? And then third practice, listen to and follow your soul. So don't just listen, follow it. You don't have to do what others do. All it takes is a willingness to be open to Spirit to fulfill you. You don't have to figure out the how. Isn't that the good news? Yes. Okay? Because a lot of us, we can't figure out that. I never knew how to be a minister. And when I was, kind of at the point of knowing that I was fulfilled with my previous church, I never knew where I was going to go. I was actually headed for a different church, and I got diverted by Reverend Andrea, bless her soul, to here. Listen to what it is. Open to Spirit. Be willing to have yourself fulfilled. Be willing. Are you willing to be fulfilled? Yes. Okay. And finally, practice gratitude. Practice gratitude. What we put our attention on increases. And if we put our attention on the ideas and the reasons to be grateful, guess what multiplies in our lives? More and more and more reasons to be grateful. I suggest to people the process of where you write down at the end of the day in a journal 5 things that you're grateful for at the end of each day. And I've met people who say, there's no way. I don't have 5 things to be grateful for. And after about a month of doing that, they're sitting there journaling for half an hour at the end of each day of the things they're grateful for. You know, the 5 turns into 10, the 10 turns into 15, and pretty soon there's lots. If you're not grateful for something, you're not paying attention. Okay? I've been at points in my life where I, was down in the dumps almost as far as you can go, not quite as far as you can go. I've met people who were far worse off. But down. And I could still look at a sunset and be grateful, or a sunrise and be grateful, or the beauty of a tree, or just the fact that I could look down on the grass instead of looking up at the grass. It's a good thing to be grateful for, Okay? So practice this week gratitude. Paul said, in all things be grateful. And he was sitting in prison when he wrote that. He was sitting in prison being tormented by the jailers over his faith and thought that he was going to get killed. And so if in that consciousness you can write, in all things be grateful, can you be grateful in the things that you're in? And I know some of you have tough things that you're in. Can you still practice gratitude in those things, right in those things? And oftentimes we've been told that gratitude is about being grateful for something. We don't have to have something to be grateful for. We just have to be grateful. And then it starts to magnify and multiply. So that's your homework this week. Pay attention. Notice your beliefs around enoughness. Be willing to have Spirit allow you to be fulfilled. And finally, practice gratitude. You willing to do those 4 things this week? Yes. Cool. My last quote is from Melody Beatty, who wrote a lot of books on codependency. She says, gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos into order, confusion into clarity. Gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. So this week I invite you to practice that gratitude. Let's pray. So I recognize that there is one infinite presence, one pure love, and it is enough. It is all that there is. We are immersed in that. We are immersed in that infinite presence of the fullest of love, the fullest love you can imagine, and then beyond. We are immersed in the presence of good. We are immersed in the presence of this absolute blissful joy. We are immersed in that presence. That is our true nature. Whether we remember it or forget it, it is our true nature. There's nothing we have ever done that could block that or keep that from being true about us. And so I speak my word that we wake up and remember this truth ever and ever and ever more fully. Bradley referred to the movie Awake. The Buddha, when he was asked, who are you? What God incarnate are you? He said, no, I am awake. And so my prayer, my word that I speak today is that we are awake more fully than ever before. That we hear our soul and our heart and that deep spiritual yearning to express what we came here and say yes to it and allow it to be. Knowing that we are the fulfillment of our own desires. That God is enough through us. that by simply saying yes, by simply having the willingness, that opens the door and the Spirit starts to move through us in the most beautiful, most powerful, most oftentimes unexpected ways to bless us, bless everything and everyone around us. And so for each person who is in this process of waking up, I am so grateful. Everyone around the world, everywhere around the world, for all of us who are waking up and saying yes to that process, saying yes to the Spirit, I'm so grateful. For the Spirit that moves through all of us, each of us, I'm so grateful. And so I release this word into a law that moves it into form, moves it into experience in your life, my life, the life of everyone, everywhere, right here, right now. We let it be. We let Spirit dance and have its way with us, and we simply go along in joyfulness and simply declare, and so it is. Thank you.
To love, serve.